It is said that in the beginning there was only Pradesi, the divine whale, mother of all things, and her kind was unique, and so she was alone in the universe, though the other gods that soon emerged tried to comfort her. But they did not understand her, for she was simply different from the others, one of a kind, and agonizingly and truly alone. She wept, and the tears of the celestial became great oceans in the sea of nothing. Her thoughts became forms upon the great nothing. Those became the lands of the earth. Her dreams of a truer world became the stars in the sky, and yet, with it all, she was still alone. And so alone, she perished, and fell throughout the world her dreams had made, gracefully, and giving life to all that would walk the earth. This, therefore, would be known as a first divine whale fall. We do not live alone in this world. Around us, just beyond the sight of what we are willing to believe, is an uncharted secret lair. A realer, more colourful world is just beyond the reach of all of us, and yet we choose not to believe. We are surrounded by spirits. We are encircled by demons, by the bones and ruins of long-dead things we don't believe in anymore. Once upon a time, the world was a more colourful place. Back when we truly believed, we could see it for what it was. But now we tell ourselves the things beyond the veil do not exist. I suppose that is why it is called the veil, perhaps, because we have chosen, all but to forget, the true world around us. "I'm looking for a ferry to Bondi Landong," I explained, hanging with the old, crooked-toothed man at the docks. It was said in legend and myth that the island contained the location of the corpse of the dead holy whale. The old man, on the swampy, ill-smelling docks, shook his head. "No can do today. It's festival time for the islanders." I nodded gently. I had been informed of the festival. "The festival of the whale?" He nodded. "I'm here for the festival of the whale." The old man looked out into the ocean, watching the fine mist of the early morning. "Sea isn't safe during the festival. There are monsters at sea." I had dealt with my fair share of monsters at sea, though I doubted there would actually be some. I am fine with that. A burlier, tall man came up to me. "I can take you to the island." A tag on his chest read Captain Murrow, in all capitals, in a brilliant red. I don't believe the legends, no. Disbelief in the old legends is what gets people killed, sometimes. But the stronger the disbelief, the less powerful the myth. So I elected to keep calm, and reply with a simple, "Exactly." The old man looked on with a look. "Not safe there. Trust me." Captain Murrow walked away, and I followed, until we settled on a little ferry at the edge of the harbour. "Now let's talk payment," he spoke. 500 USD, acceptable? I rolled my eyes. "That's literally price gouging." He shrugged and laughed. "Nobody here will take you, and—" He gestured to the empty, misty docks. "Nobody's coming, so I gotta get my money's worth." I carried a selection of high-valued artifacts in my backpack. I reached it, and found what I was looking for. A coin made of a shimmering, unknown material that cast rainbows when the light hit it. It was carved with ancient runes, and brought good luck to the owner. "Now, this coin is a few thousand years old," I explained, material unseen. "I reckon it's some sort of space alloy. Nobody knows what civilization carved it." He took it and studied it. "Worth?" I laughed. "A lot more than $500. This was true. Many in the black market artifact trade had offered to buy it off me for thousands more. He blinked and leaned back, shaking his head. "How do I know it's not a fake? Why not just pay me the 500? In truth, I did not carry money with me. It was becoming a habit, so I shrugged. "It represents how much I want to get to the island." I reached into the other, suggesting it deeper into his mind. While this was true, the coin also had another benefit. It would materialize in the pockets of its owner when separated too far. I, in fact, would be losing no money over the journey. Unethical, yes. But I was not the one charging tourists $500 for a ferry that did not seem entirely fit for duty. "All right then," he decided, walking to his little control room. "Off we go." And the ferry's engine struck and spluttered, and we separated ourselves from the docks. The old man of the harbour watched on with a grim, terrified look, and shook his head. muttering old myths to himself. I could not see him any longer then, and we drifted onwards, from the mist to open ocean. In the distance, there was the island I yearned for, Bandai Londong, the legendary resting place of the Holy Whale, a rather newly discovered place, still populated by its original peoples, though in the past 3 or 4 decades they'd industrialised to a degree and opened it up for tourism. Technically, it belonged to Indonesia, although it was disputed by China, though the people of the island swore they were an independent nation. I had no opinions on this. Politics were not my strong suit. There were many deities in the world. They had once walked among us, hand in hand, higher ascended beings who travelled and blessed us with their grace. But there came a time where they had to leave, a journey onwards, and leave our world behind for another. Some persisted, powered in place with sheer belief from the people, and when those who did not leave lost their worshippers, they died. But the divine whale I sought for was not among these deities. No, it was far older, and dead or not, it was powerful. It was a celestial, myths and legends lost to time, yet still seeping into every mind in the world. It was said that when the whale celestial fell, her lifeblood told her story and 1,000 chapters of her mind, and these stories fueled the creatures of the inner abyss, the deep celestial sea. How the divine whale exactly connected to the formation of Earth was anyone's guess, but its worshippers were powered through story and truth. I had long ago decided to walk the path of the whale, to draw out truth and invoke a sense of, like waves, peace to the world. And when I had heard about the rumour of the essence of the whale being kept on the island, I had to come. There were other celestials, ancients that persisted. I knew a few magicians who followed the art of Kalayu, the Salamander King, and there was a woman who served a god of dreams called the Painter. I amused myself with thoughts on the whale and what I could discover here. It may have been dead, but no doubt would it bring me closer to the path of storytelling. That's odd, Murrow murmured, as the ferry slowed, decreasing to a stop. Nothing seems wrong with the ship. I closed my eyes, removed my silverback gloves, and reached into the other. Careful, I warned. There's something else here. He looked at me puzzledly. I thought you didn't believe in the stories. I shook my head and concentrated on my search. I believe in the stories all right. I just wanted a ride to the... Before I could say island, something slammed into the ship, knocking me onto the floor. By the time I recovered, the air had changed. Literally. A light drizzle was in the air now, and the morning mist of the docks had begun to rush towards us. Murrow started to his little control room to move the ship, but it was too late. I rushed to the railing and looked downwards. "Corpse boats!" I shouted. "There are corpse boats!" I wasn't entirely sure if Murrow had heard of the phenomena, but he turned to me, then down into the belly of the ship. It was passed on by word of mouth that certain crossings, certain bodies of water between land were cursed by the hungering deities of the sea, of the rivers, of water. A sacrifice would be taken, perhaps 2 or 3 people disappeared, even from a crowded boat. They would simply vanish. There was an island I was aware of, near the area, where it was said the deity of the crossing world would take a couple, newly married, every year. Corpse boats were the changed remnant husks of the taken, and they acted like little lures of loved ones taken, trying to reach others into the realm of the deep. Murrow came out of the belly with cooking salt. "Would this work?" he shouted, unsure to believe me. I beckoned for him to come over. For all his disbelief, he seemed full of understanding now. Only one way to find out. Coffins drifted from the mist, rising out of the sea and beside the ship. There were many, most closed, though some drifted, empty, and others with dried, mummified bodies that brought the stench of salted death. I snatched the salt from him and readied myself. One of the coffins shook and opened. A woman in white rose out, flailing like puppetry. Murrow let out a yelp, a hand silencing his mouth, and stepped back. "Your wife? Sister?" He nodded to the second one. "So you know the stories?" He sighed. "Never wanted to believe them." The puppet sister stared blankly at us, with its mouth moved, speaking words only Captain Murrow could hear. I shook the salt shaker. "All right, let's see about—" and I threw it, guiding the blessed spies through the other onto the corpse boat. "This!" The puppeted corpse screamed, burning and turning to ash, its shell falling over. Murrow let out a sigh of relief. "Is it dead? Is her soul free?" "No," I replied. "Do you have time?" He shook his head. "Basil?" That he did. "Get it! Now!" An old man appeared, standing on a coffin, ragdolled. This one I knew. A magician I had known well before he had perished, but it was a trick of the sea. He had been killed defending me, well away on land. I felt the Basil being placed in my hand. Good. I looked back up, but the illusion of my old friend was gone. "Uh-oh," I murmured. "We're about to have company." I set the Basil on the floor, reached into my bag, and found my supply of whale oil, pouring a pinch onto the herb. I uttered a prayer of release, and the materials combusted, burning, and a mist drifted into the air. "She is free," I murmured. I felt a malevolent presence behind me, and I turned, face to face, with the shape of my dead friend. It was reading my mind, so I concentrated myself, drafting a shield in my head. It drew itself away in pain and revealed its true form, a servant of the local crossing deity, crab-like, far from human, and yet it rose on 2 legs, 4 pincher arms on its bark. It stared at me with untended eyes, its beak-like mouth snapping. "Captain Murrow, do you have—" He was already off, rushing to the deck below. I faced off against the creature now, a twisted guardian of the sea. "Servant of the Landan Crossing," I called. "I follow the path of the divine whale, Praedyce. I order you to leave." It didn't budge. This is what I got for choosing a dead, sleeping celestial as patron. Something like the Salamander King probably would have burnt it by now. It charged quickly at me, scuttling and throwing a claw at me. I swept to the side, reached into my bag, and drew out a knife of salt and iron. I struck forth, drawing a burning line and severing a claw. It struck. I dodged again, backing myself against the railing. I reached into my bag and found a small triangle of petrified wood, carved with the symbols of the Salamander King. I read the instructions. I ate the little triangle, tasted quite strangely of peppers, and I spoke. "I call upon this fraction of the Salamander King. Bring me the fire of the chariot of the sun." And I felt myself infused with elder flame as the wood burnt itself onto my tongue. I breathed flame, scorching the creature. I put my hands on it and burnt through its shell, and then knocked it backwards. "Warm our hands upon the flame," I seethed, and serpents of fire surrounded itself and tore it to the ground. Murrow came out, confused, a rifle in his hand. "What are you waiting for?" I asked. "Shoot it!" I had meant for him to find me pepper to disperse the creature, but a gun was close enough. He did, and the shot went through it. I could not control the fires any longer, and the crab beast stood up, and then charged at me once again. The next thing I knew, I was thrown off the railing, taking the creature with me, and crashing into the ocean. It swam deep into the depths, leaving, swimming onto, an emptied corpse boat, and watching my surroundings. "Captain Murrow!" I shouted. He looked over the railing. "I need rope! Now!" All around me, I heard the soft buzzing of flies. Death was coming. "I'm coming!" He vanished, and beside me, coffin lids slid open. A pale hand rose out, towards me, and a dried corpse stared directly at me. I blew at it, engulfing the boat in otherworldly flame. It burned, but more were coming. Corpses were all around me now, emerging and pulling at my coffin. "Catch!" A line was in the air. I reached for it, but a corpse snatched at it first, driving it away from me. Nervously, I leaped for the line. "Pull me up!" I yelled. More corpses tugged onto it, starting to climb. So did I, rising up. "Captain!" He peered over. "I'm trying!" I snapped my fingers and burned the line below me, severing the army of corpses, trying to drag me into the deep. And all of a sudden, I was on deck, tired, gasping for air. "What are you?" Murrow asked. I shrugged. Some callers gifted, some callers canaries, or psychics even. I didn't really care. I think we can all do this. We just need to truly believe in the old law. Still, Some people were inherently more gifted than others. I suppose it was the way of things. He suddenly let out a hearty chuckle. "I've just remembered I never asked for your name." "Aster Mills," I informed. "You?" "Captain Garrick Murrow," he revealed. "Though I'm not really a captain. That's kinda just more for show," he told. "And everyone calls me Gary, or Murrow." "Murrow it is," I decided. And then I heard something over the railing. "They're still coming!" I rushed over to the railing. The puppet corpses rose out of the sea, climbing onto the side, deep marks lodging itself into the ship. And then they stopped. Not just them. Everything stopped. The sea, the waves, the air, the gentle drifting of the cast coffins. Everything stopped. Not us two, though. No. We looked at each other in confusion. "This isn't," I murmured, "normal." And then there was a great rumbling from deep beyond, an ethereal call of something ancient, and then the puppet corpses retreated into the sea, coffin boats drifting back under water, quick, panicked. Then the waters started to rush, to seethe and fight against each other, and then I saw a shadow in the deep, one blue and rushing towards us. The remaining corpse boats started to disintegrate, falling to sea mist. My eyes widened as I sensed its more ethereal presence. Blessed are those above, the skies displayed, ancient constellations long since seen, who walk the path. I felt a familiar yet faraway presence of the divine whale Praedyce, and then the shadow breached. At the graceful jaws of an impossible leviathan closed around, and all that was left was darkness.